let's do it, shall we? What's up, everybody? 27 degrees outside. What? I'm coming to you live from Queens, New York. It's the morning afternoon live show. What's up, everybody? Coming at ya now. Merry Christmas. What's up, y'all? Are you ready to talk about stuff? I think we're ready to talk about stuff. Are you ready to talk about stuff? Let's get this show started. All right, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Eve before Christmas Eve. Is that right? Am I saying it right? I think I'm saying it right. But what's up? I am so happy to be back here. It's snowing! It's snowing! Oh, look, it's yellow snow! If you know where that line's from, you're my best friend. Anyways, I'm trying to get all festive and all that because this is the week of Christmas. I'm sure a lot of you are gearing up for the holidays. Or maybe not. I don't know. Maybe some of you don't give a shit about Christmas, and that's perfectly fine. But this is going to be just a quick announcement for those of you who are here. I already see gestures here, and my goodness, look who's back. It's Star-Lord, everybody. Star-Lord is back in the chat. It's so good to see you back here, Star-Lord. We've all missed you and your randomness and your craziness. I'm glad to hear your midlife crisis is over. Although guessing how old you are, this is probably your pre-midlife crisis, so I'm sure you have another one coming in another 5 years. But anyway, glad to see you back. Arnold's also in the chat. What's up, Arnold? Nice to see you. Thank you so much for your well wishes. I wish you the same, and I wish everyone else the same. A very safe, healthy, and fun Christmas this week. If you celebrate, if you don't, enjoy the time off. Enjoy the holidays. If you're Jewish, I don't know when Hanukkah started. I think it started already. I hope you're enjoying Hanukkah, or maybe it ended. I don't know. Just enjoy it all. Just everyone be merry and joyful and happy. And let's all have a great time this week talking about movies and all the good stuff that we usually talk about here. A lot of things to talk about. Obviously, this past weekend, we saw the debut of two kid-friendly movies, and that is Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa. I did see both of them over the weekend. I'll be talking about my thoughts on the two movies. Also, we'll be looking at the weekend box office numbers, see who reigns supreme over the weekend. And we'll see what's expected for this week. We have two interesting releases this week. Actually, three, if you count this third one from A24, that are more, I don't know if you would call them your typical holiday movie releases. One maybe is really geared towards an older audience, and I think they're going to go out and support a movie like this. The other two, I don't know. But you got A Complete Unknown, Timothée Chalamet's Bob Dylan biopic, which I'm sure is going to get a lot of buzz this week. And then you have Nosferatu, a vampire Dracula movie by Robert Eggers that's coming out that I am really looking forward to checking out this week. I'm going to be in Maryland this week, so I'm going to be finding myself a theater so that I could finally watch this movie that I've been dying to see all year. And then there's Baby Girl, Nicole Kidman's movie from A24, that I already hear a lot of buzz about her performance in. Maybe she could be getting a possible Oscar nomination for her performance. Maybe there's some awards talk. Who knows? But we will see. We will see. But very three diverse, unique movies to come out during the holiday season. And I don't know what's going to happen with those movies, but I'll be very, very much interested to see how they perform and what the reception is going to be like. But I think people are still going to watch Sonic, Mufasa, Wicked still getting a lot of play. Moana is slowly dying out, guys. And you'll see by the box office numbers when we finally review them. But when I was at the theater over the weekend, it was filled with kids. And it was a mixture of people really wanting to see Sonic and people who are still out there supporting Wicked, with a sprinkling of Mufasa in there. I mean, my screening of Mufasa was not empty at all, to say the least. So a lot of people were really, really looking forward to watching that movie. How they felt about it, I'll share with you all my thoughts about it when we get to that point. But first off, I would love to see how everyone is doing here. Arnold saying, I'm still fine, still waiting for the call. Well, fingers crossed you're going to get that call soon. I know you were very positive about it. Starless looking forward to everything we talk about. Merry New Year! If everyone knows where that reference is from, then you are all my friends. No, it's Happy New Year, Happy New Year. Coming from Star-Lord. I know Jester saw Sonic 3 over the weekend, and I'm curious to hear his thoughts on that movie. Did anyone else see any brand new movie over the weekend? Let me know in the chat and all that before we get into some of the major topics. And I'll be recapping what I've been up to the last week. Basically, the stuff that I've watched. I saw the latest episode of Skeleton Crew. I saw Creature Commandos. I started watching that series Secret Level on Amazon Prime. And if you don't know what Secret Level is, it's a series of one-shot, short, CG animated stories based off of gaming IPs. Now, it's not just video games. They cover tabletop and things like that. So I think I'm 10 episodes in out of 15. And it's an interesting premise. It is a very interesting premises. Some really good stuff in there, and some stuff that's just like, okay, well, they did something. But I do recommend it if you're into something different. So yeah, that would be really, really cool to see what people's thoughts are on that. Jess was saying, yeah, I saw Sonic 3 with my sisters, and mom went to see Moana 2. I hope they enjoyed it. Because obviously by now you already know my thoughts on Moana 2, but I hope they had a good time with it. I didn't just, because I pay attention to people when they have conversations at movie theaters and what they're talking about. I did not hear anybody talking about Moana when I was at the theater over the weekend. Just so you guys know, like if there's multiple movies that come out in a weekend, usually the way I do it is that I will go either on a Thursday night or I try to sneak in there on a Friday. But if all else fails, obviously I'm there either Saturday or Sunday, and I'm there almost all day because I'm going one movie after the other. I take my little notes and all that, and that's what I do. That's how I screen these movies. When I'm not invited to special screenings outside of that stuff. So I do tend to listen to people's reactions. I tend to listen to people who, when I usually pick up my popcorn, I listen to people buzzing about what they're planning to see and all that. And like I said, it was a lot of Sonic talk, a lot of Wicked talk, but not very much so much for Moana. And a little bit of Mufasa as well, because whether or not you like the last live action adaptation of the movie, Lion King still holds very strong in the hearts of a lot of people, especially those lovers of Disney animated movies. During the golden era, the resurgence of Disney animation. That was part of that resurgence back during that period. You had Little Mermaid, Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and these were just like knockouts at the box office and all that. So Lion King still holds true to a lot of people's hearts, and of course there's going to be a following. Plus you also have a younger generation who are probably just getting introduced to Lion King for the first time, and I'm sure they're dying to see more of that stuff, especially in a different take on it, when it comes to live action, CG, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, so it's just very, very interesting that to hear people's reactions and see what people are really looking forward to. Before I get into more stuff, if you're watching live, don't forget, hit that like button. We'll greatly appreciate it. Everyone here in the chat will appreciate it as well. And, you'll get good karma. And maybe Santa will give you the thing you've been wanting for this year for Christmas. So just saying. Not that I have a tie-in with Santa directly, but, I talk and people sometimes listen. So spread good vibes all around. Started saying, I still need to see Sonic 1 and 2. Jester saying, but might add nonstop laughter in Sonic 3 screening. Starlord also say, I saw the first Sonic, just not all the way through. I always wait for the new movies to be free. I'm a spoiler magnet. Yes, that is true. Starlord always never minds whenever we talk about spoiler stuff here on the channel. So that's all good stuff. But yeah, Jester, I'm glad. It sounds like to me you absolutely enjoyed Sonic. And Arnold just chimed in as well. New Sonic 4 out of 5. High praises all around for the new Sonic. So, let's talk about some stuff, shall we? First, let's talk about some of the things that I watched this past week. And one of which was the latest episode of Skeleton Crew. Ficon is not here at the moment. Ficon is like the big Star Wars fan of the group. This is one of the things I love talking to him about. But Arnold also enjoys Star Wars as well. And I was really looking forward to this new episode, episode 4 of Skeleton Crew, because it was being directed by the Daniels. Now, the Daniels are the two guys that are responsible for that wonderful A24 movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. The big hit of that year when it came out. I won a bunch of awards, brought Michelle Yeoh back into the general audience's eyes. Ki Kwan, his career has been reinvigorated. Now he's popping up in freaking Marvel properties, Star Wars properties. He has a new action movie coming out next year, which looks very interesting. So his career, he has a lot to thank for that movie. And we haven't seen anything from the Daniels since. And I was very, very curious as to how their episode was going to turn out when I found out that they were directing an episode of Skeleton Crew. So, yeah, I watched it, and it's probably one of my least favorite episodes of the show so far, which is unfortunate. They leaned in a little bit too much on the humor and the comedy, and a little bit too... I've noticed there was a way too much overacting happening. They had this new girl when they went on this planet that they thought was their home planet, but it turns out to be a different planet. That was also kind of like hidden in the star system. And they landed on... And this planet, they're fighting all the time. They're at war with each other. All the different communities are at war with each other. And I hate when they do this, when they introduce a character who's supposed to be too cool for school, and every chance they get, they have to do a flip, or they have to slide, or they have to do some sort of actions like movement when it's so unnecessary. It's a little bit over the top. It felt a little bit too Spy Kids for me. And that was this new girl. This new girl was way over the top. Her overacting was just a bit too much to handle for me. And it's unfortunate because they were putting a lot of spotlight on, I believe the blue character, the Nice Noodles character's name is Ned, is it? Am I correct in saying that? The little cute blue kid. And they were putting a lot of emphasis on him and how he's not one for fighting. He's all about peace and friendship and having conversation and all that. And I think when you look at it from that point of view, it added a lot more character to this character for them. And I thought it was very cute, this little relationship he was building with this girl. But the rest of the episode just felt a little bit too much. Now, again, I say this every week. If I was 10 years old, I think I would still love this episode. And I think I would still love this show because like I said, very Spy Kids, and it was something that maybe I'm just too old for this type of content now. So I don't expect to be enjoying every episode of Skeleton Crew, but it did feel like it was a little bit too much on the kiddie side with the humor, the overabundance of humor, and a little bit too much of the overacting all across the board. Jude Law still continues to be really cool in his role here. And you know, it's yeah, it is what it is. And it was just very unfortunate because I was very much looking forward to seeing what the Daniels can do. It makes me a little wary about their whatever new project they're working on. I believe they're supposed to be working on a new movie coming out next year or the year after. And they were picked to also eventually direct a Star Wars movie as well. I don't know where that's going right now. As we all know, you know, Lucasfilm and Disney, they always love to announce all of these projects they're working on, but some of them, sometimes more than half of them, never come into fruition, right? So it'll be interesting to see what the Daniels have cooked up for us in with their next project, but this episode just did not leave a good taste in my mouth, and it may end up becoming one of the episodes that are going to be kind of forgettable for me. So yeah, so if I was to rate the episode, I would give it probably a 3 out of 5 stars. You know, there were still some bits of it that I still found entertaining and I still find interesting as they keep unraveling the secrets of their home planet that these kids are from, and why has their planet and all of these other random planets near them, why they have all been kind of erased from history. So it's very interesting to see all that come out. So Arnold saying it was too much for me. Are you referring to the latest episode of Skeleton Crew? Jester saying, yeah, I love Sonic 3. Thought Shadow's character arc was expertly written, and a few of the jokes fell flat, but the majority of them were funny. Star saying, I like Jude Law. He is so me. The guy is so random. Yeah, Jude Law is an interesting dude. He's a very good actor. My funny story about Jude Law is I remember when he did Hamlet on Broadway, and I took a date to see that because she really wanted to see Hamlet, and she really wanted to see because Jude Law was there, and she wanted to wait after the show back in the back entrance for him to come out, where a lot of people kind of wait for like autographs and signatures and photo ops and all that. So yeah, I hate doing that stuff, honestly, but just because she wanted to, I did it for her. And I remember taking a video of Jude Law as he was approaching her and signing her program and everything. I was like, oh man, this dude's short. Like, I was taller than Jude Law, you know, and I was like, oh man, that's hilarious. And you could really see like his hair, you know, receding and all that, because I was kind of above him like that. But that was my little brief interaction with Jude Law. Well, basically, I didn't say, hey, you're short. I said, hey, man, good job. And he said, thank you. So very, very interesting there. I know what you mean by that. Yeah, I knew you were referring to his character. Right now, Jude Law's character in the Skeleton Crew is what I really find most entertaining about the show so far. Especially since you could tell he is a scoundrel. You could tell that he'll do anything to get whatever he wants. You know, lying about becoming a Jedi or being a Jedi and, you know, all that stuff. Being able to barter with opposing faction on that planet in order to rescue the kids, because he knew that without the kids, he won't be able to, you know, get off the planet and go to the planet and get treasure or whatever the case is. So he's playing the role. He's playing the role. But I still love the fact that the kids are kind of in charge of the ship and all. But you start to see little vulnerabilities of the kids in this episode. But I did appreciate the small story arc of the little blue guy there. Despite me not liking the new young girl character with her overacting and her flipping for no reason over crates and shit. So yeah, so I saw that. Creature Commandos, another great episode of Creature Commandos. This time the main focus character was Weasel. I love a very heartbreaking story with Weasel, man. I read an article about James Gunn when he wrote this episode, and he said it's probably the toughest thing he's ever had to write because it is extremely, extremely tragic and sad. Um, if you're familiar with the Weasel character, if you're familiar with Creature Commandos, you know that he was imprisoned or captured by Amanda Waller and all that because he was accused of killing kids. I don't know if I should even say that, without getting some sort of strike on the channel or some sort of demonetization. But he unalived kids. And, you never know with Weasel because one, he can't speak. And two, he's such like a random offbeat character. He just does whatever it is. And he's very brutal in many ways. We saw what he did to Cersei when he finally got a hold of her and was just basically going to town on her. It was just crazy stuff. Um, but the backstory, the way they unveiled it here in this episode was so sad. The fact that he was just a lost creature out of nowhere and he befriended these kids who he was playing with and they had enjoyed being together. And then, unfortunately, because of an accident in the school that they were in, there was a massive fire and he was attempting to save them. But your very typical Frankenstein monster story where you have outsiders. All they see is this crazy monster and him trying to drag the kids out of the fire, but they think he's attacking the kids and they attack the monster. And as a result of that, he wasn't able to save any of the kids, and the kids all died. All were all unalived by the fire and explosion, and it was so sad and so tragic. Um, so I think out of all of the characters so far in Creature Commandos, that is definitely one of the strongest story arcs to learn about, especially since he doesn't know how to express his emotion in any way because he's so nutty, he's so crazy. And I kind of like that. I like James Gunn knows how to write very off-beaten characters and knows how to write very complex characters. And Weasel is definitely a very complex character. Again, for someone who doesn't know how to communicate with anybody, and for someone who's very rabid and chaotic, you never really know what he's thinking. You never really know where he falls on the side of good or bad or whatever the case is. And to learn more about his backstory was just very, very interesting and fascinating, the way James Gunn was able to write it. His brother, Sean Gunn, does the creature sounds for Weasel, and he voices G.I. Robot too. So yeah, very, very cool thing. Another cool thing about the episode is that Amanda Waller got a vision from Cersei about the future, or what she perceives to be the future, and it looks like the entire Justice League and all of DCU has been destroyed and unalived. And that is all because of the fact that they left this princess, they left her alive and not captured. So now they're trying to go back and see what they could do to rescue her or whatever the case. Well, you have Flag, who is, romantically involved with her. So he's trying to rescue her. And then you have everyone else who's just trying to capture her or maybe unalive her as well. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see how this moves forward. I believe the next episode is going to be focusing on Frankenstein, and we'll get to see more of his motivation and backstory there. So yeah, so I think that's going to be really, really cool to see moving forward. It was just announced today that Creature Commandos has been renewed for a second season already. So obviously, Max, Warner Brothers, DC, they're all happy with the results that they're getting from Creature Commandos. It is a very good show. It is very entertaining. It's very James Gunn, though. So if you're not into that, this may not be the show for you. But I've been enjoying it, and I think it is a really good start to the new DCU, which leads us to, we finally got the reveal of the Superman teaser trailer last week. And for those of you who follow the channel, for those of you who watch what I post, I did my reaction to the trailer, and I was blown away by it, because not because we we got a lot of stuff from the plot, or we don't know what the storyline is yet. But because of all the random characters that we're getting in this movie. Now, when I was covering the story about the casting and all the stuff that James is planning to put in the movie, of course I knew Guy Gardner was going to be in it. I knew Hawkgirl was going to be in it. I knew Mr. Terrific was going to be in it. There was rumors and mentions that Crypto was going to be in it. And my biggest concern was like, wait, there's a lot of characters in here, a lot of cameos. But at the same time, James does a really good job at ensembles, right? And we've never really seen him do a movie where it like solos one person, where it's focuses on just one person. It always ends up becoming an ensemble piece, no matter what. Peacemaker is an example of how it originally started as like a solo focused show, but eventually he surrounded himself with all of these other people to accomplish what he had to accomplish, and that's just how James Gunn's write. That's how he writes, So it looks like, yes, we are getting a Superman movie, but he's going to have a lot of supporting characters in it. And to see all those reveals in the teaser, Crypto showing up, Hawkgirl, Guy Gardner with his bowl cut and his very terrible outfit, Mr. Terrific, we got the face of Metamorpho. It was just so amazing that we're seeing all of these things happening in live action that I lost my mind, and apparently a lot of other people lost their minds too, because this ended up becoming the highest viewed debut of a trailer for any DC property. You go back when Zack Snyder was doing the DC universe, you go back to whatever, all those other DC movies, 250 million views in its debut, in its first day debut. I think if you look at the chart of all the top debuts of a trailer, this one falls in 5th place, I think, which is fantastic, which is amazing, because a lot of people are waiting for this new Superman movie. People have been begging for a Superman movie. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Henry Cavill in it. And, I don't know how Corn Sweat is going to do in this role. I still think he looks a little bit too thin, a little bit too skinny, but I'll wait and see. I won't judge until I actually see the movie. But if done right, and just looking at the tone and the way James have like kind of formatted the look of this movie, it does look very bright, very colorful. It's not as dark like the Snyder universe. In a way, it almost reminds me like it almost feels like he's doing an homage to the Donner movies, the movie with Brandon Routh, with his own spin on it. So I really do feel like he's going to be able to give us a lot of what we've been wanting, and surprising us with stuff that maybe we never thought we'd wanted to see, but now we're so happy to see it. So far, so good. That's what I'll say. And I really enjoyed the trailer. I think I've seen it now, 6 times. I had a chance to see it in the theater. It showed in front of Sonic and in front of Mufasa. And I got to tell you, seeing it on the big screen in the theater, it looks 20 times better than it does watching it on your computer or on your phone. There was a new... it's also different. It's cut differently because you see a different version of Mr. Terrific. You actually see his face very clearly. You don't see that scene where it looks like he put up the shield and he's shielding all these bullets from coming after him and all that. It's a very different cut of the trailer. But just for that moment, everything else is pretty much the same. But it was very, very good to see how that looked like on the big screen, because it gave me a sense of, okay, this is how it's going to look like when I finally see the movie up there. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a well done teaser trailer. Just a teaser, no dialogue in there. The only thing we ever heard David Corn Sweat say was "home, take me home," when he called Crypto, when he was whistling for Crypto, and we didn't hear anything else. But they focus a lot on the cameos, his relationship with Lois, right? A lot of scenes with him and Lois, because the romance between the two is very key to the story of Superman. And a lot of him as Clark, especially back in Smallville. I'm assuming that's a flashback with him and Pa Kent. So we'll see how it all turns out. But so far, it's looking good. I would love to see what the full trailer gives us before the big movie comes out next year. But Superman has now, I think, officially become my most anticipated movie of next year. I think that is right now even above Fantastic Four, and I've been waiting for Fantastic Four for a very long time. Superman, I think now took over the number one spot of most anticipated movie for me for next year. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'll talk more about movies coming out next year that I'm looking forward to on the next stream, which, by the way, just a quick announcement. This will be my last stream for the year. I'm going to take a break next week as I spend time with family, as I spend time doing stuff, personal stuff, getting things ready for the new year and all that. So I won't have a stream next week, but the week after, I will have a stream. And we'll talk about the new year and what to expect in the new year and all those things like that. So, all right, let me catch back up with the chat here. Sorry, I apologize if I missed anything, but I'm going to look through everything now. Starlord saying, I'm pleased with the new Superman movie, especially the trailer. It says a lot about crazy shit happening around the world, and a bunch of powerful people are involved. Very elite. Yeah, they do cut and cover that too. It reminds me very much of there was a story I read about the backlash of having Superman. It calls back to the Brandon Routh Superman, which I think is a little bit underrated. The world without a Superman, like, does this world need a Superman? And Snyder covered it a bit in Man of Steel as well. And very much just like how human nature is and how the social climate is like, are we accepting an alien, someone not from Earth, to be the savior of Earth or the protector of Earth? And I feel like we're going to get a lot of that there. Arnold saying, I forgot to tell you, I was at a game event and I was allowed to play A Quiet Place. Oh, the new video game Quiet Place. How did you like it? The stealthy game. That's a game I've been wanting to try out. Let me know how you felt about it, Arnold. Jester saying, oh, you can't mention the Superman trailer without talking about the amazing score. Absolutely. The score, and Jester, I think I mentioned this to you separately. It very much reminded me of, it felt like it was a mix of the Hans Zimmer score from Man of Steel and the old school John Williams score. It was like a good blend between the two. So it sounded it sounded really good. Jester saying, I've watched the Superman trailer 18 times, including the time the trailer come up in my Sonic 3 screening. Very cool. Starlight saying the score slaps. Kevin Davis, people are rooting for James Gunn. Kevin, by the way, nice to see you here, as always. Hope you're doing well, and I wish you a happy holidays for the upcoming week or two. People rooting for James Gunn to finally get a win for DC Studios. I think right now he's doing pretty well, I think. Not a bad start with Creature Commandos and the teaser trailer rolling out. And it sounds to me, or it looks to me, like everyone has been enjoying that trailer so far. Even though I did get some down likes on the trailer. My trailer reaction, not sure why that is. Who knows? People are funny that way. Starlord saying Christopher Reeve mentioned he himself was skinny at first. Yes, yeah, that was like a big problem that he had when he was filming the original Donner film, and almost to the point where he almost talked himself out of doing the role. But he pushed along and was encouraged, and look what happened. He became the most iconic Superman on screen to date. Kevin Davis says, I hope Disney Studios doesn't take wrong lessons from Mufasa bombing at the box office. Let's stop showing black people in our films just to please alt-right conservative crowd, just to make money. I don't think that's the take that's going to happen with this one. I think the take is no one cared about this story. No one really wanted to see a prequel to Mufasa. And again, I'll share more thoughts about Mufasa later on. So I don't think that's going to be the take here. I think it's going to lean more towards there are certain stories that people just don't care about. And I don't think this was a necessary story to tell. Sword 7 says, Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to be Superman. Could you imagine if that happened? I remember hearing a lot of stories about Arnold when he got into Hollywood. He wanted to do a lot of things. But the first thing people wanted him to do was actually learn how to speak English first. So Kevin Davis, box office analyst, wants Sonic 3 to win at the box office. That's interesting. That's interesting to see. I don't know if I wanted Sonic 3 to win, but I knew it was going to win. And we'll get into that in a little bit when I go over the box office results. Arnold saying the game is really different. I had to sneeze once. I died right away. So let me ask you a question, Arnold. Do they utilize the microphone on the PlayStation 5 controller to monitor sound coming from you? So like not only is it stealth, but do you also have to be quiet yourself or else you could trigger certain events? Because if that's true, then that's freaking awesome. I think that's a great way to go about that game. It hasn't gotten a lot of buzz out there. It really went on sale during the holiday sales and all that. So very, very interesting. I think it's also a short game from what I've heard. So maybe that could be why. Starlord saying there can only be one Superman, like there can only be one Conan the Destroyer. Arnold was built to be Conan. It's amazing. I still, to this day, I wish, I don't know what's the holdup. Maybe it's licensing and all that, but I would love to see like King Conan, like an older, grizzled Conan, in his later years of life and still trying to hold on to the glory, the lamentation of women and Crom. Screw you, Crom. I do it myself. The hell with you. I don't think no matter what noise I made by myself, it has an impact on the game. That's awesome, man. Well, we'll call Christopher Reeve the Superman. Like I said, he is the most iconic Superman on the big screen. You can get, no matter what people felt about Henry Cavill, and I thought Cavill did a good job with Superman. And let's see what happens with Corn Sweat. But Reeve will always, hands down, be the most iconic Superman ever to play that role. So, Starlord saying, "Bro, King Conan should happen." I agree. I someone needs to get down to it and really figure out how to do it, how to make it happen. Because while Arnold is still alive and well, and Arnold actually did a voice in one of the episodes of Secret Level, where he played kind of a character that is very Conan-like, but more swashbuckling version, and a character that's very much in love with himself and think that he should be the king of everything. And then he got humbled in the episode. And the whole time I was watching this episode, I thought whoever was voicing the character was doing an Arnold impersonation. But then when the credits rolled, it really was Arnold Schwarzenegger. So I just found it really interesting that he voiced a character very much like that obnoxious, entitled type character who believes that he can fight anyone and be the king and ruler of everything. And then he gets humbled in this show. So I thought that was actually one of my favorite episodes of Secret Levels so far as I'm watching it. So I highly recommend you check it out if you have Amazon Prime. Arnold is stuck in limbo with that. Yeah, I don't know. They need to figure it out because, like I said, while he's still alive and being and able to act, he needs to do King Conan. He needs to do it because I think with the right writers and the right director, I think it could be an amazing film. An amazing film. Speaking of films, let's check out the weekend box office. Let's go through my weekend box office breakdown. And guys, let me know if the snow is annoying. If you're tired of the gimmick, I'm more than happy to shut it off. I just think it's funny to get into the festive feels here. But when I go into browser view, I'll make sure to have it off so that it won't bother like anything that you have to read on screen. So I was saying we must get more than just put the cookie down. It's not a tumor. Who is your daddy and what does he do? All right, let's get into it. Go to my site, thenumbers.com. So no big surprise in my opinion, but Sonic the Hedgehog 3 claimed the #1 spot at the box office this past weekend with $62 million. Here domestically, let's see, worldwide, we don't have worldwide numbers just yet, but 60 million is a great number to be at. I was predicting that it was going to do anywhere between 80 to 90. I thought it was going to be able to repeat the results that it got from Sonic 2. It came in much lower, but I also feel it's like this because we have the holidays happening this week. More people are planning to watch this movie this week compared to just over the weekend. So I think we're going to see a similar effect of what we saw with Wicked and Moana, even though they did really well their debut weekends. The holiday week is going to see where they're going to be able to see more benefit out of the holidays. So I think more and more people are going to see this movie this upcoming week. But it did beat out Mufasa, which only pulled in $35.4 million here domestically. Want to see if they're okay, but international. Again, this is why it's always important to look at international numbers, because a movie like this will do really well internationally. $87.2 million so far internationally for a worldwide box office of $122.6 million. So right now, in my opinion, Mufasa is not a flop just yet. I think because of its international box office, it's still doing really well. Its budget, I looked at it earlier, and its budget for Mufasa was $200 million. So for its debut weekend, I think it is doing really well, and it's on its way to, if not break even, to pull in a little bit of profit for Disney. So, but no surprise, I predicted that Sonic was going to beat out Mufasa. So that's not a big surprise to me. But yeah, Mufasa, 200 million production budget before advertising, and Sonic had $122 million budget before marketing and promotion. So I think both movies are going to do extremely well, especially going into the holiday weekend, into this holiday week through the weekend. It's going to definitely have legs, and more people are going to have a chance to see it. Because I feel like this is the type of movie that you'd want to see with your family. Sonic is more for kids. Mufasa is definitely more of a family affair, in my opinion. But no big surprises at the box office results there. AKB, you called it, but you did also say that Sonic was going to do over $100 million. So I will say that was a bit of a stretch. But you were right, just like how I predicted it too. It could be called Sonic 3 beating Mufasa in the States. There you go. Star-Lord, I'll write a script for King Conan, which will have the characters from Destroyer. That would be interesting. But who would be recast? Well, we could go into that topic at another time, because that would be like a fun discussion to have. But there you go. So Sonic is number 1. Mufasa is number 2. In third place, you still have Wicked, dropping from second place from the previous week, but only a 38% drop from last weekend. Pulling in $14.1 million so far domestically. Overall total, Wicked is beating Moana 2, which I'm not surprised at. $384.5 million domestically overall. Internationally, 188.4 for a worldwide box office total of 572.9. They already announced that Wicked 2, when the release date was coming. I shouldn't say Wicked 2, it's more like Wicked Part 2. And I believe it's the new tagline or the new title is Wicked Forever or something like that, or Extremely Wicked. I don't know. They're playing around with that stuff. I don't like it. They should just stick to Wicked Part 2 and then move on from there. Moana is in fourth place with 13.2 million. Dropping 50% from the previous week. I'm telling you, people are no longer looking forward to watching this movie. I think word of mouth is kind of hurting it just a little bit. But don't say that to the international box office, because you could see 431.1 so far worldwide, $790.2 million. I think this will end its box office run close to 900 million. I said at one point it has the potential to reach $1 billion. I think word of mouth is starting to spread that this movie is not as great as it should be. And it's great. It's interesting to see Mufasa now, knowing that Lin-Manuel Miranda spent all of his time writing the music for Mufasa instead of going back to Moana. And the differences really show. And I'll talk more about that later. But 790.2 million worldwide for Moana. So not, even though not a great movie, it still proves Bob Iger was right in wanting to release this in theaters. And they did it, and it's proving that people really tried to support this as much as possible. AKB say, yeah, I stretched it out too much. Yeah, a little bit. John Wicked. I see what you did there, Star-Lord. It's time to it's time. The witch is packing heat. It'll be cool if she pulled out some guns from her broom, or kind of like a la El Mariachi, when his guitar case was a machine gun. Still one of my favorite crazy ass movies. If you've never watched El Mariachi, it still remains to be Robert Rodriguez's best movie, I think, in my opinion. You gotta watch it. It's that whole the I believe he calls it the Mexico trilogy. It is the funnest romp of action movies you'll ever watch. It's just batshit crazy. The stuff that he came up with. I love the little crew of mariachis, and each one had a different weapon in their as their guitar case. One had a rocket launcher, another guy had something else. It makes me want to watch it right now. I haven't seen it in a while, but anyway. Coming in fifth place, Homestead, another release from Angel Studios that is, again, a faith-based production, $6 million domestically over the weekend. So I say this time and time again, faith-based movies will always do really well at the box office. A huge support for those type of movies out there. Gladiator 2 is in sixth place, fell down from fourth place last week. 40% drop, $4.5 million domestically, 154 so far domestically, with an international box office 262.3, worldwide 416.3. I still think this has a shot to hit $500 million, 500 million. So we'll see what happens, if the holidays will help carry it forward. Coming in seventh place, dropping from third, with a 72% drop from its debut weekend, is Kraven the Hunter. $3 million over the weekend, $17.3 million domestically so far, $25.4 million over at the international box office. Not even international audiences are excited to see this movie. 42.7 so far over. I think this will end up becoming one of the biggest flops of the year when you look at the year-end recap of everything. It's going to be this, Borderlands, Madam Web, and I'll try to do something where either on a live stream or on a separate video, I'll recap some of the biggest bombs of the year. Or I don't want to say the worst movies of the year, because it's not fair to say that to the creators of these movies, especially all the thousands of people that work on movies. But I would say the most movies that I found disappointing. And I'll say that. Oh, I hear a fart.
You are the best YouTuber in the world.
Arnold, with the €3 super chat. You are amazing. Thank you so much, man. You are awesome for that. Thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it. I don't think that's true, but I appreciate the fact that you think that. Jared, what's going on, Jared? Sonic movies are the best. How are you doing? Disney needs to stop and listen to fans. I'm doing well. I'm happy that all of you are here and tuning in and watching. I'm glad that you enjoy the Sonic movies. I do also agree that Disney needs to figure something out, because people are starting to give feedback by not supporting these movies anymore. And even though Mufasa has his issues, it's still getting decent support internationally. But you put this, with all the other live action stuff that they've done recently, and seeing the trailer for the new Snow White movie, oh my gosh, that's going to be a nightmare. And hearing the reaction of the audience when that trailer popped up in front of Mufasa, I'm telling you, Snow White's going to end up bombing badly next year. It doesn't look good for Rachel Zegler and that whole movie. Which is very, very unfortunate. But anyway, we'll see what happens. But I agree, Disney needs to figure something out, because their live action stuff just is not working at all. So let's see. I just want to catch up with the chats real quick. Kevin Davis said, audience is going to reject Anthony Mackie as Captain America. I hope not. I think they should give it a shot. If that movie doesn't do well, it's because it wasn't written very well. That's my opinion. And maybe the fatigue is still there for all the Marvel movies. What If just started. Season 3 of What If just started 2 days ago. They're dropping an episode every day for a week, I think. Is anyone watching that? Are any of you guys watching that? Let me know. I'm curious what all of you think about that stuff. Starlord saying he wanted to be Desperado. How did that turn out? Arnold's 100% true. As a Marvel fan, I accept Anthony Mackie as Captain America. I do too. We need an eagle that can fly. I think, again, if the new Captain America bombs or fails, it's going to be not Anthony Mackie's fault. I think it's just going to be people are tired of the quality of the Marvel films coming out there, and maybe the writing, and maybe word of mouth. We'll see what happens. Remember, if you look at what happened with Agatha all along, it started off really slow, and then halfway through, more and more people started watching and watching and watching, where the last 3 episodes outperformed viewership wise than the debut episodes. So word of mouth is a real thing. And if people say you got to watch this movie, you got to give it a chance, then people will go out and support it, you know? And I think we might see that happen with Captain America. It's coming out on Valentine's Day, which is a weird day for it to come out to. So for all of you nerd couples out there, you could spend your time at the movie theater and have a romantic night out with Captain America and the Red Hulk there. So it'll be really interesting to see how that performs when it comes out next year. What is the best? Arnold, what is the best what? I'm curious what you mean by that. AKB saying maybe a 2025 financial flops. Yeah, like box office bombs, box office disappointments, you know. Or just, you know, I'm planning on doing a series of videos of movies I gave 1 star, 2 stars to, my 5-star movies of 2024. And I'm basically just going to call it like the movies I was most disappointed in, you know. So, I mean, the series What If? What is the best? I haven't seen the new season yet. As far as the previous episodes from the previous seasons that we got, oh god, it's hard to really think of what episodes I loved the best. Like what if I love the zombie ones. I thought that was really cool. I love the twist on Guardians of the Galaxy where it was T'Challa who became Star-Lord. I thought that was really, really interesting. You know, I have to look back at all the episodes and see which one it was my favorite. Star saying 2025 will turn Hollywood around. Well, they already started seeing it. So I believe the initial prediction that a lot of the, you know, cinema owners and studios, they were all expecting the box office to really come around in 2026. And then slowly they've been inching up more and saying, oh, it will be 2025. But based off of the results we got from this summer and now what we're seeing towards the end of the year with some of these big tentpole movies like Moana and Wicked, they're very happy with the results. And they're seeing a turnaround happening way sooner than they expected. 2025 is going to be a packed year. It's you know, when I come back to stream in the next stream, you'll see, I'll recap all the new movies coming out. And it's a packed year. It's solid. You know, I don't think there'll be a single month, with the exception of January, which is common, that will, every month is going to have something for everybody, which is going to be really interesting to see. Plus, there's another report that I saw saying that Gen Z is strongly coming back to movie theaters to watch movies in theaters. So I think that's a great sign overall that people are coming back to theaters. They're realizing how fun it is to be back in the theaters, but you got to have movies that will bring them back. And I think this coming year, there's going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot. All right, let's finish out the list here. Coming in 8th place, Red One, still pulling in numbers, $1.4 million over the weekend domestically, 95.4 so far overall, even though it is available on Premium On Demand, $181.8 million worldwide. 9th place is The Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim, $1.2 million, $7.3 million domestically, only 7.9 internationally, 15.2 overall worldwide. I think this is a big disappointment so far. I don't know what their budget is, but I don't think a lot of people were really, really excited for this movie to come out. And then rounding out the top 10, you have the best Christmas pageant ever, $780,000 domestically, $38.4 million overall domestically here. Still in there because it is a holiday movie and, you know, it is the holiday season. Outside, just a few mentions I want to call out there. Queer, Daniel Craig's movie from A24. I think this is one of Daniel Craig's best performances ever. Is still out there in theaters very limitedly. The Brutalist, Adrian Brody is in this. So these are two movies I saw at New York Film Festival. God, this movie is so good. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. There are some things in it that I had issues with, but this is also, I think, Adrian Brody's best performance ever. Really well done film. The cinematography is fantastic in this. It's like a really, really nice immigrant period story. Very, very good stuff. So I just wanted to call those out real quick there out of the box office. So there you go. So that is the box office for the overall weekend. Now, this week, like I said, interesting releases. You have Nosferatu, Baby Girl, and A Complete Unknown. I think A Complete Unknown is going to do really well out of the 3. Nosferatu, don't shy away from that. A lot of people love horror, and I think people who are looking for something different to watch this week when they're off from work and when they're off from school, I think a lot of people are going to check out Nosferatu. So I think overall, Sonic 3 still has a chance to maybe pull on top at the box office because, again, it is a family-friendly movie, very kid-friendly. But don't be surprised if we see maybe Sonic 3, A Complete Unknown. Actually, scratch that. Sonic 3, then Nosferatu, A Complete Unknown, and then Mufasa after that. I believe that's going to be your top 4 after the box office this past week. We'll see what happens. That's just my predictions. I'm not an expert or anything like that, but that's what I'm thinking is going to happen with this upcoming week. So, all right, checking back in on the chat once again. Sorry saying, I mean, look, Snow White will probably be the cause. We need a P. Diddy movie. Oh no, please. Too early for that. Shareholders will be the next to protest. Jester, we need a what if Star Wars, you know, like what if Anakin went. There, a lot of fans actually would love to see a show like that. I've seen so many people mention that possibility of, hey, what if there was a what if Star Wars? And I think a lot of people would love to see that. Quick reminder to anyone watching live on the stream, would love if you hit that like button. Please don't forget to do that. So really greatly appreciate it. And as a quick reminder, I won't be streaming next week. I will be taking a week off to, take care of like personal things and to spend more time with family. I'll be back the following week to celebrate the new year and all that. Star-Lord 7, we'll start with What If sequel trilogy. I think one of the best Star Wars what ifs would be, well, they already see. I think Book of Boba Fett kind of ruined it because I think a perfect what if could have been what if Boba Fett survived the Sarlacc pit, but we already saw that he did. It's just unfortunate the rest of the show sucked, or I shouldn't say sucked. I enjoyed some of it. It was very lackluster. That's how I would put it. What would be some other Star? Oh, what if Anakin sold C-3PO to somebody instead of having C-3PO join them? I think that would be interesting, right? Didn't they join him? Wait, when he left Tatooine, he said, "Sorry, I wasn't able to finish you," and blah blah blah. And then he left him on Tatooine. And then how did C-3PO end up becoming? I don't know. It all becomes very muddy to me. Maybe one of you who are more familiar with the prequels will remind me how C-3PO ended up becoming all that stuff. What if Snoke was Rey's sugar daddy? Or what if Finn was actually a Jedi? Because wasn't that something that they were supposed to do? And they kind of just glossed over it. What if we actually found out what Finn was trying to tell Ray this whole time as they were sinking away? Ray, before we go, I got to tell you something. What? And then we never found out ever again. What a hot mess. Anyways. All right. I want to give my thoughts and reviews on the 2 new movies I saw over the weekend before we get into some random news topics in here. So I want to talk about Sonic 3. Already heard Jester enjoyed Sonic. Arnold enjoyed Sonic. I've made this known on the channel before. The first Sonic I thought was very well done. The one thing I really loved about Sonic was that they developed a great relationship between Sonic and the human characters. You know, the Madsen character. And there was a nice human element. It was very much similar to like a coming of age storyline, a realization storyline, a good mix of all those things that made me feel it was relatable, very much so. And I thought, you know, it was a good mix and balance of the humor, especially the Jim Carrey humor, right? Sonic 2 veered very much away from the human element and focused so much on the Sonic and Tails character story arc, where the majority of the film, you had no human element at all whatsoever. And I thought because of that, I didn't enjoy it as much. Now, all the kids in the audience enjoyed it regardless, especially when the big reveal at the end that Shadow was going to be the next character, you know, unraveled and unveiled and all that. Now we are here with Sonic 3. And I'll say this. I love that they brought the human element back, but they brought it back a little bit too much. They can't seem to find a balance between the human element and the CG characters, you know, having their own adventure and all that. You could tell that they were trying to provide that balance when in the very start of the movie, Sonic, they have a mission, they have to go, and they're gone. And I said, oh no, they're doing this again, where the humans are being left behind. But they found a way to bring them back and be part of the storyline, which I thought was cool. But the reason why it didn't work for me is because, one, not only was it too much between the human characters, like the Madsen character, you know, the girlfriend romance character, but there was also a lot of Eggman and Eggman's grandfather and the assistant. There was just a lot of that stuff. And when you have a lot of that stuff and the leaning in on too much of the 8-year-old, 10-year-old humor in there, I was kind of like lost a little bit. I was like, all right. Again, just like Skeleton Crew, if I was 12 years old, 10 years old watching this, I'd probably find a lot of the jokes extremely hilarious. But there were so many things that were so out of nowhere, you know, that were just, it was just done to invoke laughter or invoke silliness. And Jim Carrey still is a fantastic comedic performer, you know, and he still does really great stuff with his body and his facial expressions. But I feel like a lot of his comedy is very much stuck in the 2000s. You know, there was this one moment, and I don't mind, you know, speaking spoilers here, and I'm sure most of you here watching don't mind either. But they're supposed to break into this base. And there's a bunch of these lasers. The whole typical trope of the laser field and blah, blah, blah. It's been overused and overdone. There's a lot of overused and overdone cliches in this movie, right? And it's Robotnik and the grandfather, right? And he developed this suit where it kind of bounces the lasers off, right? And it's like, oh, look, we could get through. Yeah, so you know what that means? It's time to dance. And it just becomes like a crazy dance music video and it lasted what felt like 10 minutes. I'm sure it was just like 2 minutes, but it became just them dancing for no reason. It's like, pause the movie. We're now going to sit back and watch these two guys dancing to a Q-Tip song, you know, and it became very much like a music video. And I'm sure the 6-year-olds, the 8-year-olds in attendance were dying during this moment. They're like, oh my god, they're so silly. And I'm just like, really? We're doing this? All right. Really? We're still doing this? Wow. All right. And there was a lot of that type of comedy in this movie. Now, I still think Jim Carrey's performance was very good. And I agree with Jester that the writing of the Shadow character was interesting. They gave it a more serious approach, which was really cool. I was a little bit put off by I wasn't sure if they were going with a romantic relationship with him and the girl, but at the end of the day, I kind of looked at it more of like it's just a very innocent friendship, like young friendship. I don't know if there was love, like romance love in there. I don't know. Because that was just very weird to show those moments with them together and holding hands and all that stuff. But I thought the way they approached the storyline of Shadow was serious enough that it lended a lot of great story elements and story moments in the movie. And it got a lot of great motivation from Shadow's point of view as to why he is the way he is. I don't think it was necessary to cast Keanu Reeves in this role. It could have been anybody, but because Keanu, all he did was have a brooding voice the whole time. And the one criticism I've always had about Keanu is that he doesn't know how to emote. He really doesn't know how to emote. It's like he could be happy, sad, surprised, and his tone is always going to be the same. His his range when it comes to dialogue is not his best asset. He's great at action and he's great at playing a particular character, right? But his voice as someone who is always brooding, I guess it works in that aspect, but there's no emotion the whole time, so it was just very, very interesting to hear that play out as I was watching the movie. Great action choreography during this action scenes. I love that they did the Akira slide when they're in Tokyo. That Shadow did that. The bike slide, I thought that was a nice touch, homage to Akira there. But overall, I thought it was decent. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. It was definitely much more enjoyable than the last movie, than Sonic 2. But for me personally, it leaned in a little bit too much on the humor side of things. A little bit too much of the human element, and they don't know how to properly blend the two without placating too much to the younger audience and being very goofy and silly and over the top jokes and the Jim Carrey-ness of it all, like leaning very heavy into a lot of the old Jim Carrey comedy, like you would see from The Mask or Dumb and Dumber. It's not, there wasn't a lot of subtlety in this movie when it comes to the comedy, especially from Jim Carrey's side. He still got it though. I will say that. If anything, I was always interested to see what Jim Carrey was going to do on screen whenever he popped up. But other than that, like I said, it was decent at best. I don't know if this would be a movie that I would want to see again. But the audience reacted very well, especially at the end when they did the next reveal of what's to be expected in the next movie. And it looks like in the next movie, which they have already greenlit, that they're working on Sonic 4 and it's going to be coming out in 2027, which is a long time, if you ask me. I think that's a long gap between the two movies. Maybe eventually it could be pushed up. But they're introducing the Sonic robots. And guys, I'm not a huge fan of the Sonic franchise, so I don't know all the names of the characters. So I apologize in advance. But they're also introducing the female Sonic character, the pink colored girl, whoever her name is, with a hammer. So she shows up like during like the post-credit scenes or whatever the case is, or the pre-credits, whatever. And even though it looked like Shadow sacrificed himself to save all of humanity, and that's another thing they did too in this. It's a very typical storyline where two enemies eventually form a bond to save the world, and all that. They come to realize that they could benefit off of each other by understanding how they handle situations and how they handle life or how they see life. They team up at the end to go against the big impact event that was going to happen to wipe all of humanity out from existence. It looked like he passed away, but no, he's back, and he's going to. It looks like he's going to join the team, maybe, or maybe he's going to be like a random character that'll be around that they know is around, and if they need help, he'll be there. So yeah, the Sonic cast is filling up very big. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do in Sonic 4. I don't know how much of the human element mix we're going to get this time. I don't know if even Jim Carrey is going to come back, because he's been hinting at retirement for some time now. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. It was decent. I didn't hate it, but at the same time, I didn't like extremely love it. So there you go. Let me catch up with the chats again, because I love that you guys are carrying on with the what if Star Wars storylines here. What if George Lucas didn't sell Star Wars? Starlet's saying, so glad Ugly Sonic was brainwashed to the Shadow Realm, was banished to the Shadow Realm, sorry. He needed to sell Star Wars because I didn't think he directs anymore. Starlet's saying about George Lucas. Arnold saying, what if General Grievous didn't die? That'll be interesting. Starlord saying, I'm grateful for more Star Wars. It's better than no Star Wars. Just not the DIE hires. Okay. Sorry, but you can't force the Force. Direction is always seemingly better than the writing. Jester saying, my friend yelled, Shadow, she's a minor during the screening. So, okay, so it's not just me who was assuming that they were going towards a romantic interest, right? Because I felt very put off by that, you know, because she could have been, what, 12 years old or something like that? Maybe 13, 14 at best. But I really felt they were leaning in towards like a very romantic storyline. I was just like, oh, wait a minute. It kind of reminded me of that really bad Sonic game for the Xbox 360, where they introduced humans into the world of Sonic for the first time. And the storyline, and I only know this because of the Angry Video Game Nerd episode that covered it. They formed a romantic bond, Sonic and this female character in the game. And I was just like, this is really weird, man. This doesn't look like it's supposed to happen this way. So I was put off by that. So it kind of reminded me of that a bit. Arnold saying, what if Ahsoka have a baby with Chewbacca? Oh no, what the hell? What are you insinuating, Arnold? Starlord saying Ahsoka would never. Oh my gosh. I think Arnold is formulating his own porno in his head. Fanfic porno. Really funny, man. You crack me up. All right, let's move into Mufasa talk real quick here. So, yes, Mufasa came out. It's another movie I checked out. And I'll repeat what I thought about the first Lion King live action movie. My biggest criticism, and I think everyone had the same feeling, was that I like the approach of kind of generating lifelike animals to tell the story of Lion King. But what was very lacking was emotion. Because guess what? Animals don't emote like humans do. And they didn't have any emotions whatsoever. And I felt it made it feel very shallow and not very, there was no relatability there. Plus, it was too much of an exact one-to-one retelling of the original Lion King movie. There was nothing more unique about it. Nothing really like stood out. Some of the voice acting was very questionable, especially Beyonce's voice acting, which I thought was terrible. You know, so there was a lot of that movie that I just didn't enjoy. And I remember falling asleep halfway through and waking up knowing I didn't really miss much of anything, because if you watch the original movie, you know exactly what happened, scene by scene. And I was very disappointed by the first Lion King movie. I was surprised that they were going to do another one with Barry Jenkins back directing, and this time they're going backwards in time. They are telling a prequel story of how Mufasa became Mufasa, right? And it felt very much like one of those Disney direct-to-DVD movies they used to do back in the day, where we got like an Aladdin 2. We got like sequels to all of these movies. I believe there was like another there was another Lion King one and a half, I think it was called back in the day. There were a lot of these like direct to DVD sequels, direct to home video sequels. And this felt like it felt like this was an attempt to do something similar to that. But of course, they're going to release it in the big screen. And with Barry Jenkins, they were hoping that they were going to make a big movie out of this. Here's what I liked about the movie. And no, I'm just kidding. Could you imagine? All right, here's what I liked about the movie. They listened and they finally gave these people, or sorry, I shouldn't call them people, these animals, they smiled, they frowned, they cried, they emoted. And in a way, it was very much easier to understand the emotions and have the emotions come across watching these animals, that I really appreciate that they did that this time. Another thing I liked about it, and this goes back to the thing I criticized Moana 2 about, is the music was actually very well done. I don't know if I will say there's one particular song from the soundtrack of Mufasa that will be the one I will always remember, but you could tell Lin-Manuel Miranda has his fingerprints all over this, and it worked. It worked. It gave the soundtrack and the songs personality and meaning in this movie. And in a lot of the scenes, it felt like it fit. Unlike Moana 2, where most of the music in Moana 2 were terrible and they were not memorable and they were not catchy. And it felt like every time the songs popped up in Moana 2, it was more of a distraction than a compliment to what was happening on screen. And that is something I will always give credit to Lin-Manuel Miranda on, because he's very good at doing that. And you could tell he had all of himself in the soundtrack of this movie, and it worked. And that was severely lacking in Moana 2. And I know there was an article that came out of him explaining why he wasn't involved so much in Moana 2. In fact, let me pull that up real quick, because it goes along with what I'm talking about right now. And it was reported by the Hollywood Reporter here. Lin-Manuel Miranda reveals why he didn't return from Moana 2. And basically what he said is that it didn't line up that way. Actually, he said, is like, I got the script for Mufasa when I had just finished Encanto. And so I started working on that at the top of 22. So Moana 2 was already in process as a TV series with Emily, Bear, and Abigail Barlow. So then when the decision got made to turn it into a movie, they were already cooking. So basically, the reason why he never came back is because he never had a chance to, because like I kept mentioning, Moana 2 was never meant to be a movie. It was always going to be a TV series. And when they reconfigured it and, spliced it all together to actually make a movie out of it, you could tell there were a lot of elements missing. And unfortunately, the music was severely lacking. Mufasa, I will give it credit that the music really worked in Mufasa. I don't know if at the end of the day there's going to be memorable songs from that movie, but at least it was working, and it acted as an integral part to the movie. And that's unfortunately the last of what I found very positive about the movie. What was disappointing about the movie is, because of the addition of emotion to the animal faces, unfortunately, a lot of things felt very CG, unlike the last one. There are moments where a lot of the water looked very fake, very realistic, and a lot of the movements of some of the animals felt very unrealistic. I mean, it's still amazing technology. It's still fascinating what they could do with CG at this time. But it did feel like it was a step backwards. Two, the structure of the movie was just very bad. And it was one of those structures where you start the movie off with the young daughter of Simba. Nala, Simba's wife, right, is pregnant. So she's about to give birth again. So they have to go off and he has to tend to Nala. So he's like, all right, you stay back here while I tend to your mom. We'll be back soon. You, Rafiki, warthog guy, and the annoying other dude, the muskrat, whatever you call it. You be babysitter to my daughter and keep her company because there's a big storm happening and she gets afraid of storms. So I need you to watch over her while I tend to my wife. So they separate and now you're just stuck with the daughter, Rafiki, Pumbaa, Simone and Pumbaa, right? So what do you do when you see a story like this? Let me tell you a story of your grandfather, the man responsible for all of this. How Mufasa became Mufasa. Mufasa. And now you flash back to when Mufasa was a little kid, right? And the structure from here goes, Mufasa was with his parents, and there was a forced event that happened. They were going through a drought. It rains. Yay, water. Oh no, flood. I'm washed away. And I'm separated from my parents. And now, oh, look, this other tribe found me. Oh, we don't accept outsiders. Oh, but, he's by himself and he's lost and he's a kid. If he stays, you're responsible for him. Okay, let's run and race and let's do things. And it was like action, forced story element. Then fast forward and then they grow up. Like, oh, look, we're teenagers now. Cut back to, what do you mean they're teenagers? Oh, this is a story of how the world turned upside down and how Mufasa became the king of Africa. I don't know. They kept cutting back and forth between the storytellers and the actual story. And it was cute in the beginning and then became very distracting after like the fourth or fifth time. And during those cutaways, during those moments where, okay, reminder, this is being told as a story, there was a lot of fourth wall breaking in, where you have Simone and Pumbaa constantly breaking the fourth wall, reminding us that, oh, these stories are always fun, unlike the musical. Oh, what? There was a musical? Man, I enjoyed the musical. It's a lot of like cutting in real life pop culture references and fourth wall breaking that they were trying to be very witty about, and it most of it landed extremely flat. And I think most of it the audience didn't even catch. Like the whole musical mention, I got a little chuckle out of that because I'm like, oh my god, they're actually bringing that up. I didn't hear a peep from anybody, and my theater was like 80% full for this screening. So I feel like a lot of the jokes just went above everyone's head, But so many cliched story tropes, and the major cliche story tropes here is you got two friends, right? And then there's a woman. And these two brothers, they're so tight. One of them has the hots for this girl. I said, you go for it, man. I support you. But this person, the one in love with this woman, is the weaker of the two. He's always kind of scared and skittish, doesn't want to get into too much trouble, right? But the other guy, the friend, oh, he's the adventurous one. He's the one that has leadership qualities, right? So there was a big problem because they're getting hunted. Because there was another four-story element where they came across like the bad herd or whatever you call them, and because of an unfortunate event, the son of that king passed away, and now it's like, who's responsible for the death of my son? It's like, you guys got to get out of here, because you, the weakling, you're promised to be king, and we need the bloodline to survive. Mufasa, keep him safe. You got it. You took me in as your family. I will do what it takes to make sure that he stays alive. Like, all right. And the guys come, and kill. You don't see it, but it's assumed that they're all done for. It's like, we got to find the bloodline and terminate the bloodline for the passing of my son. So they're running away, and they almost come to a head, and they come to the herd of elephants. And the elephant's like, oh, we'll use the elephants' help. They're not listening. I got an idea. Beehive. Oh, no, bees are all over the place. Oh, my God, stampede. Oh, no, the woman's in trouble. I don't know what to do. I'm running for my life. I'll save you. Here comes Mufasa saving. You're okay. You're okay. I got you. Who saved me? He did. I did? Oh, I guess I did. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did it. You're the one. Yeah, good for you. Yeah. But then later on, there's a reveal. There's a revelation. Wait a minute. You didn't save me. Mufasa, it was you, wasn't it? Well, yeah, I guess. But I'm not the one in love with you, or maybe I am. Strangers in the night, exchanging glances. Oh, what a wonderful sight. Jester has to go. Merry Christmas to you, Jester. I will see you in the new year. Thank you as always for supporting the channel and for tuning in. You're amazing. I'm sure we'll chat sometime in between, but I'll see you in the next stream, man. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday. And I'll get back in the chat when I'm done with my recap here. So the weakling sees this, like, oh, I've been betrayed by my brother. I know how to get back at them. And the turn happens so fast. Seconds. He finds the other herd, the other pack, and be like, yeah, I know who killed your son. It was Mufasa. And I'll show you how to find him. And like, oh, you're willing to betray him? Oh, and then I'll take care of you like you were my own son. Yes, thank you. And then, then they find the tree of life, which was something they were looking for the whole time, which was like a myth. No one knew it existed. It's like, oh, you bring danger to us now because you're being hunted. It's okay. Stand with me, people. I, Mufasa, will protect you. Oh, my brother betrayed me. How dare you? Fight. Blah, blah, blah. And then, other dude's just like, I think I made a mistake. I don't want him to kill Mufasa. I'll save him. I'll step in last minute. My face. Oh, look, I got scratched. Mufasa ends up beating the king of that herd. The rest of the herd gets shoved away. But during this battle and skirmish, the rocks, they all tumbled and everything is falling apart. Oh, look. This is how the famous rock is formed. It's too much exposition and explaining as how things were created. So now Freedom Rock, or whatever you call that, where they go, they have to explain how that whole thing was formed, right? So that happened during the whole skirmish. And at the end of the day, Mufasa's like, I don't want to be your king. I want to be all like you. I want us to be all equals. And I want there to be a place for my brother. But I will never mention his name again for his betrayal. It's okay. You can call me Scar. Call me Scar to remind me of what I've done. Oh, I'm so sorry. Scar it is. There you go. Freedom Rock. Yes, thank you, Star-Lord. Yeah, the formulation of how Freedom Rock was formed because of this, a cave caved in and things fell apart and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, okay. You will be forever known as Scar. Get it? That's how he gets his name, because he has a scar on his face. And of course, all this is happening. We're cutting back and forth. And like, oh, he's got a scar. Oh, that's how it happened. Yes. Oh, yes. And it also became a Rafiki storyline too, because Rafiki became like kind of like their mentor, their guide, the one who kind of helped them realize that you need to go here. And Mufasa, you don't understand. You may not come from royalty, like a bloodline royalty, but you ended up as royalty because of your actions. Oh, you're so wise. You're my best friend. You know, and that's Mufasa, basically. And at the end of the movie, you know, we end with little daughter going up on Freedom Rock. Like my grandfather. I want to be like my grandfather. And Rafiki's like, well, you are because he's in you and blah, blah, blah. Oh, look, here comes Simba. You have a new brother or whatever. And like, oh, yay. And movie ends. So a lot of the story is very typical. A lot of, you know, stuff that we've seen before, that we've heard before. The first two acts were extremely slow and boring. And I found it to be very dull. And I was like, oh no, this is terrible. What saved the movie for me, just for a little bit, was the third act. Because that's where all the meat happens. That's where all the major stuff happens. Now, I didn't like all the forced explanation as to how Scar was named Scar, how Freedom Rock was formed, you know, how Rafiki and Mufasa became so close. You know, a lot of forced stuff in there. You know, and I hate it when prequels do that. And it's like you have to tie everything together. You know, it's almost as if you're dumbing things down for your audience, which is so not necessary. But a lot of these studios, they feel they have to do that. And overall, I found the movie to be boring. It was just somewhat boring to me. And even though I did say, yes, I love the emotions on the faces now, the soundtrack was pretty good. You know, and I will give Barry Jenkins credit for this. This movie had a lot more emotion in it. And because of the changes that they've made through, you know, based on feedback from the last movie, you could feel it. You could feel a lot of the emotion here. But the structure, the pacing, and just the reused story elements that we have already seen time and time again, I found the movie to be very boring. But man, the audience ate it up. They clapped at the end of the movie. They were very happy with it. So maybe it's just me. You know, I told my friend this recently. Also, you know him on the channel as PQ. That I think I just see too many movies where I now can, you know, pick away at some of the issues. Very similarly to like when I used to game test video games for a living. Like every time I would play a game, I could always notice the flaws in games. And that was always the first thing I would see. So very similarly to that, I feel like it's just so much it's so easy for me to see some of the flaws in story structure and pacing, or the reused elements that we've seen over and over again. You know, it just became very bland to me and in a way shallow. You know, so after a while, I was just like, man, this movie wasn't great. And I gave it 2 stars out of 5. It was unnecessary. This whole story, this whole movie, very opposite of Moana. This should have been a Disney Plus series. This should have been a Disney Plus movie. This was not necessary to put out on the big screen. It really wasn't. And I don't think people wanted a prequel story to The Lion King. And yeah, it just it didn't do anything for me. You know, so it's a little bit unfortunate. I think this is an L for Disney. Story wise, I think financial wise, it still will do well. I think it's gonna, if anything, break even. PDQ, as if I'm calling John Hendry, Joe Hendry, or Satan himself. He just summons. It's like, you rang, and there he is. I hope you're doing well, by the way. Yeah, Mufasa. I can't recommend it. It wasn't anything outstanding. If you happen to see it, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. But at the end of the day, I just didn't find it as entertaining at all. So for me, it's another L for live action Disney productions. But that's not going to stop them. They're heavily promoting Snow White and Lilo and Stitch next year. So we'll see how they butcherize those movies and those franchises in the new year. All right, now let me catch up on chat. I apologize. I was, when I get into my zones, I'm sorry. I just don't want to lose focus and all that. Arnold saying, I like the video with Chewbacca and the Stormtroopers. What if Chewbacca spoke English and Han spoke oh wow, the Wookiee language? That would be interesting. What if Jar Jar Binks is actually a Sith? Now that would be a wonderful what if storyline. I think that would be like the what if storyline that a lot of people would love to see. It was just translated into Acolyte from Star-Lord. Let's see. Let's see. Started saying, okay, but how did he become Jeremy Irons? That's a very good question. They didn't cover that part. They should have covered that in the post-credit sequences. How did the elephant graveyard came to be? Oh yeah, they died. Did they die because of drought? Isn't that how it happened? I don't know. Started saying Aladdin prequel would have been good, called Genie. I think the Aladdin prequel is called Kazam. I think Shaq starred in it with Will Smith and Jack Black. Well, speaking of Jack Black, did you hear the announcement about Jack Black and Paul Rudd doing a new Anaconda movie? And it looks like they're going to be leaning in more towards the comedic aspects of a movie like that, as opposed to when the original Anaconda came out. They were really trying to make that a serious movie. And me and my friends turned it into a comedy because we couldn't stop laughing and commenting throughout the whole thing. Star-Lord, I know you know Mystery Science Theater 3000. That was us in the theater. And it was so bad that the people in front of us all walked away and found other seats in the theater. And this was the days of free seating. You didn't have assigned seats. So I think there were like 4 or 5 of us, and we could not stop commenting on this damn movie because it was just painful and stupid all throughout. And a lot of my friends were big into JLo at that time, because she was like the new hot girl from In Living Color or whatever she did. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't see why you guys are attracted to her. Ice Cube with his dumb dialogue, and John Voight with his like creepy freaking rapey vibes. It's that movie was just so bad. But yeah, they're doing another Anaconda movie, so that's something that was announced. I thought that was really, really interesting. But yeah, let's talk about, before I end the stream today, let's talk about some of the recent news that popped up within the last week. Some interesting stuff. Obviously the big topic from last week, or one of the biggest topics from last week, was the release of the Superman teaser trailer, right? But with anything else that happens that is a positive, there's a lot of people that always have to report on some negative or spread rumors about negative, right? That just seems to be the case. And there were a lot of rumors spreading immediately after the teaser trailer came out that James Gunn has been having a battle with his VFX crew on the film. And behind the scenes, there's a lot of turmoil actually happening where he was laying off a lot of VFX people, working on the film. And that the film at one point was in trouble, like seriously in trouble. So here's an article that kind of helps explains or gives some insight as to all those things. Following the first teaser trailer of Superman dominating so much discussion this week, some questions about the film have been answered in interviews at a recent press event for the trailer launch. One that came up that got a good response was to DC Studios co-CEO James Gunn, who was asked about post-credit scene and whether DC plans to do them like Marvel with teases for future films, do something different where it's not set up for something else, or not even have them at all. He explains via a comic book movie that they're going with the middle option. Quote, if you look at my credit scenes on the Marvel movies, the one time I fucked up myself was when I put Adam Warlock in, because then I'm like, oh shit, now I got to put Adam Warlock in the next movie, which actually was a pain in the ass. So I'm not going to set up a whole universes with end credit scenes. I love giving audiences who sit through all of the credits end credit scenes, but I'd rather it be something that's fun for fans and not necessarily, hey, we're setting up the whole next part of the universe. He also explains via DC Film News that all of the supporting hero characters in the film, Mr. Terrific is the most important. Quote, I love Mr. Terrific. These characters all get their moment in the sun. They all have their moments. They're not just cameos, they are characters. They're supporting cast, but Mr. Terrific is the main character of those characters. He actually has a big part of the plot. So that's really interesting to find out here from his mouth. I'm sure eventually later on down the line, we're going to see a spin-off of Mr. Terrific, if that's true, because we all know when James Gunn loves a character, he's going to continue writing stories for them. We all knew Rocket was his favorite because he kept writing for Rocket. So much so that in the third Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Rocket was the main focus of the whole thing. So, in answering some questions on Threads, Gunn says the film's runtime isn't locked yet, but it will be under 2.5 hours. He also shut down a report that emerged yesterday that he replaced a good chunk of the film's visual effects team 2 weeks ago. This is where the big negative rumors started happening, right? Quote, not even a little bit true. My VFX teams are killing it. A couple of months ago, I made some changes with the post-viz, temporary effects for editing purposes, team. They have been zero changes with the VFX team. When one VFX artist thanked him for giving a VFX artist the time to work and avoiding the known Marvel issue of multiple changes late in the process due to scene and script changes, Gunn says, I just want quality, and giving the artist that, along with clear direction, is the best way to ensure that. Finally, an illustration of the film's Fortress of Solitude has gone online and shows a slightly different take on the icy home of the character. So as you could kind of see, it just looks like a big meteor struck the ground and formulated this ice structure, right? Or the crystals like kind of formed like this big explosion looking thing. I think it looks fine to me. It doesn't necessarily have to look like the typical Fortress of Solitude, but there you go. So as with everything online, at the end of the day, you can't believe everything. And you have to understand that people are always looking to clickbait and always looking to grab people's attentions when something's hot. So take all of that stuff with a grain of salt. Now, could he be lying to us? Maybe. We don't know. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt here, because James Gunn is always someone who's always brutally honest, sometimes too much to a fault. Another thing that I fault him for is that he's constantly online. He's always on social media. And I think he needs a little break sometimes, where he's so quick to respond to everybody that maybe being that accessible is not always a good thing. Just my opinion. That's just the way how I look at things. But that's just my takes on that stuff. Star Wars saying Adam Warlock should have his own movie. He was good. I agree. I think his character is a very interesting character. So I don't know where his story arc will go moving forward under the Marvel banner, knowing that he is part of the new Guardians of the Galaxy team up, right? With Rocket being the leader. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. PDQ says, yeah, internet doesn't get it right, like the Amir stuff at the Game Awards. Yeah, we had a separate conversation about that stuff too. about the controversial stuff from the Game Awards about their game changer of the year and that guy who won, the guy who was like helping people get jobs and all that stuff. So yeah. So again, do your research before you believe stuff, before you believe a lot of the rhetoric you find online. You'll find most often than not a lot of the stuff that is online is meant to clickbait you and fool you. I'm hoping this next bit of news is not clickbait, but there's apparently a new Ghostbusters animated film in the works. I believe this is for Netflix. So I'll read the article here. Sony Animation and Netflix are aiming to expand the Ghostbusters universe, with the companies teaming on an animated film based on the property. The project is reportedly still in early development, with Chris Pern attached to direct. Plot specifics are being kept under wraps. The hope for the project is to do for Ghostbusters what the Spider-Verse films have done for Spider-Man, generating not just box office, but strong critical acclaim as well. The property was previously adapted for animation back in late 1980s with the beloved Real Ghostbusters series and the less well-known sequel series Extreme Ghostbusters. Word came back in June that an animated supernatural comedy series based on the property is also in the works at Netflix. That project is reportedly a completely separate work from the new animated film. Pern previously directed Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. That's good. That's a good sign for Sony Animation, and The Willoughbys for Netflix. Yeah, that's a good sign for that director, because Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, that whole series was actually very well done. And I think this is a very smart way to move forward with the Ghostbusters franchise. I loved Afterlife. I didn't like Frozen Empire so much. And I think with everything that's going on right now, the best thing to do is to progress the storyline, to progress the lore through different mediums. Make a TV show, maybe an animated show, maybe an animated movie. I don't know. Maybe this is a great way to kind of bring back the real Ghostbusters and maybe do a sequel series to that, like a proper sequel series to that. I mean, I think that would be a lot of fun, if you ask me. And I'm sure a lot of Ghostbusters fans will think the same. Or give the current cast, the new group that we have, the real Ghostbusters treatment, very much like what they did with the original cast. So I think this is smart for them. I think, honestly, this is probably the safest way to carry on the franchise without so much expectations and attention being put on box office results, for studios. I think this will be good. And putting it on Netflix is a no-brainer, especially since it's still the number one streaming platform around outside of YouTube. So I don't know. I'm somewhat excited to hear about this news. I'm curious what you all think about that stuff, but I think that would be very interesting to see a new animated Ghostbusters. Now, would it be the CG animation or more of the classic animation? I guess time will tell. Maybe they use some of the mixed media type animation that we've seen with Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots, like kind of like the dropped frame rating and all that stuff. I think that's really cool stuff. So we'll see what happens. So I was saying, it looks like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 ended on another cliffhanger. Yeah, with Star-Lord, right? Star-Lord back on Earth. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe with another holiday special, not too long for a movie. Yeah, that would be cool. I could see them doing like another holiday special. Maybe Star-Lord this time on Earth, spending time with his is that his uncle? That he went back to visit. Yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see that. A piece of news that dropped a couple weeks ago that I wasn't able to cover yet, I found very disturbing in a way. Adam Warlock holiday special. That'll be interesting. Centers around Sesame Street. So Sesame Street hits the market. HBO and Max opt not to renew deal for new episodes. The Warner Brothers Discovery streaming service Max. Let me just blah blah blah. Before I get into this, here's the problem I had with Sesame Street, or the recent treatment of Sesame Street. Sesame Street, in its creation, was always meant for inner city kids to be able to have access to such programming to not only help teach them how to learn stuff, reading, numbers, social aspects in life, but it was always meant to be free entertainment for kids. The minute they were bought by Warner Brothers, HBO in particular, to air new episodes on Max, I thought defeated the whole purpose. So the only way to watch new episodes of Sesame Street when they came out was to be subscribed to HBO and then eventually Max when that platform came out. And then you would have to wait months upon months for those episodes to finally release on PBS. And I thought that was doing such a disservice to, the main idea behind Sesame Street and the reason why Sesame Street was created in the first place. But then I also understand that it's hard to do productions like that depend on donations, that depend on funding from viewers like you. Remember, they always used to say that in the beginning of every episode. The Helena Rubinstein Foundation. Is that foundation even still around anymore? How are they getting their funding? So I understand that there's a corporate element that needed to be involved in order to save the show. But now hearing this, it makes me very worrisome for this. So the long-running series is looking for a new home for its original episodes after Warner Brothers Discovery opted not to renew the Sesame output deal with HBO and Max. That being said, Max is staying in business with the show's producer Sesame Workshop, with the streaming service continuing to license episodes from the Sesame library through 2027. In addition, the current season of Sesame Street, season 55, this show has been around for 55 seasons, everybody, will still be available on Max beginning next month. The decision not to continue the deal for new episodes stems from a change in strategy, with Max pivoting to focus more on adult and family programming and placing less emphasis on kids' fare like Sesame. Quote, "It has been a wonderful creative experience working with everyone at Sesame Street on the iconic children's series, and we are thrilled to be able to keep some of the library series on Max in the US. A spokesperson for Max tells The Hollywood Reporter, "As we've launched Max through and based on consumer usage and feedback, we've had to prioritize our focus on stories for adults and families, and so new episodes from Sesame Street at this time are not as core to our strategy. We are excited to extend our 10-year partnership with Warner Brothers Discovery, keeping Sesame Street's iconic library available on Max through 2027. Spokesperson for Sesame Workshop says, "We will continue to invest in our best-in-class programming and look forward to announcing our new distribution plans in the coming months, ensuring that Sesame Street reaches as many children as possible for generations to come." So here it's recapping the whole deal that they had. Sesame Street had been on HBO since 2016. Episodes also air on PBS a few months after they run on HBO, allowing for maximum reach and accessibility as alluded to by Sesame spokesperson, with the company's last striking a 5-year deal in 2019 that moved the show to HBO Max and Max. The show could draw substantial attention from a number of major players, not only because of the marquee name, but also because of its library of episodes, which span more than 5 decades. Max had pulled hundreds of older episodes 2 years ago as part of cost-saving measures at the company. It is not clear whether the library deal with Max would prohibit potential partners for new episodes from acquiring the library episodes. So other streaming services like Netflix, Apple TV, Prime Video could be eager to beef up their services with arguably the best-known children's show of all time. Executives at Sesame Street, cognizant of the end of the contract and seeking to keep the program fresh, are embarking on an effort to reimagine the show for season 56 next year. The first season that will run under whatever new deal the organization is able to secure. Sesame Street will get a new look, dropping the magazine-style format it had for years and leaning into longer narrative-led segments, paired with a new animated series, Tales from 123. The changes will be the most significant since 2016, when the show went from 1 hour to 30 minutes. Quote, "It's going to give us an opportunity to dive further into the narrative," Kay Wilson Stallings, Executive VP and Chief Creative Development and Production Officer for Sesame Workshop, told THR at the time, calling the changes a reimagining of the show and adding that the longer segments will allow for more dynamic and sophisticated stories. So it sounds to me like they're really trying to make Sesame Street more into a show. like, oops, not there, into a show. And it's very, very interesting because the magazine style show where they had segments, they had clips, here's your number clip, here's your quick about words clip. Oh, here's a quick segment with Bert and Ernie. And here's another, it's been very SNL like in a way for a very, very long time. So maybe this change could be beneficial moving forward if you want to make it into like a more show that will attract more audiences, maybe maintain an appeal to a younger generation. But I also feel like the younger generation, they don't have the attention span for long narrative shows. I think the magazine style, the TikTok style of storytelling is what Sesame Street needs. I don't like it, but I think, uh, in order to be relevant to a younger generation, that's what they have to maintain. Even though I would hate to see it turn into quick, like 2-minute segments here and there, and that would be a disastrous, right? At the end of the day, I want Sesame Street to be around. I think it's very important for it to be around. Very important for it to be in the lexicon of children's programming. And I think personally, I think Netflix should be the home for Sesame Street. Given that outside of YouTube, Netflix is the larger platform out there with more subscriber base than Disney Plus or Max. I think Netflix would be a perfect home for that. And right now, a lot of families subscribe to Netflix and utilize Netflix for their children programming. So I think outside of Disney Plus, now Disney could be another option too, because they do have a lot of Jim Henson stuff on their platform already with the Muppets, Muppet Babies, other Henson properties there. So that could be the potential home for Sesame Street as well. Bluey is on Disney Plus, and Bluey is like one of the biggest kids programming today. So that could also be a perfect home for Sesame Street. At the end of the day, I just hope they could figure out something to keep Sesame Street going. And I hope that they could find a way to also lessen the lead time for it to land on PBS so that those unfortunate not able to have subscriptions to on Netflix or Disney Plus will still be able to watch it, just like how I was able to watch it growing up. So we'll see what happens. Anytime anything Jim Henson related hits the news, I'm always very passionate about, because Henson has always been a major part of my childhood and still to this day remains very big in my heart. So it's a simpler form of storytelling and entertainment that is very underutilized and underappreciated today. So I always try to support it as much as possible. And I hope, it's something that can keep going forward for years and generations to come. Let's see. Star-Lord, Kevin Bacon becomes a Guardian this time. Oh, that would be interesting. I want the Dave Chappelle version of Sesame Street with Q-Tip, or leave well enough alone and play reruns. Arnold, what if LOWKEY Geek has permission to make a movie where money doesn't matter? So if I were to make a movie, what movie would I make, Arnold? Is that what you're asking? I don't even have long attention span anymore. If timestamp movies to watch rest later, classic movies, I used to be able to sit through a whole movie. See, I still don't mind doing that. The one thing that I've never been affected with is short attention span, because I'm always very patient. I love whenever I watch a movie at home, I put my phone away. I'm focusing on the movie. The only time I would have to stop a movie is if I get very sleepy, and I just can't. Then I will pause and continue it. But I have the attention span of like an old elephant. I don't know if that's true or if that even makes sense, but I don't mind watching longer things. Like I've never been affected with this newer generation of short attention span content. Star still needs to finish watching Disturbia. Well, get on it. Arnold. Okay, so if I could make a movie where money doesn't matter, first I would need to learn a lot about movie making, even though I do know a bit. Here's the thing. I don't want to be a director. I don't. I don't want to be a director. I don't want to be a writer. I want to be the man behind the camera. I want to be a cinematographer. I want to be able to visualize the frame and help tell the story with already what has been written and what the director wants to see. That's where I see myself in, and if I were to be a part of any kind of production, or if I were to be able to choose what kind of movie I can make, I I mean, that's a very, it's hard for me to think of what kind of story I would love to be a part of that's original. That would force me to have to sit down and come up with a concept or come up with a certain idea. I like the idea of, telling stories from point of views that are less seen. Like, how about a superhero movie from the sidekick? Where the sidekick is the one that you see everything through, right? We've seen glimpses of that before in other storylines, but like the whole movie is the sidekick, point of view from the sidekick. Or I always thought, and again, this is something that we also seen in previous iterations, is what happens to the after effect of a major battle between a major superhero and a major villain. We've seen like some stuff cover that, but one of the coolest comics ever made was Damage Control. And Damage Control was basically the company that would clean up all the mess that was left in the aftermath of like a major battle. What if we got stories like that? I find like that kind of stuff interesting. But if I was to sit down and come up with an original story, I would have to have time to think about it and think. Now, if you gave me a property that I could work with, and if you asked me what kind of property I would love working with, Thundercats. I think Thundercats would lend itself to a great story. I don't think live action would be the route I would take with it. I think I would do like CG or something like that. I think Thundercats has a very fun storyline that I think could resonate with a lot of people, not just nostalgic people like me. So I don't even have a phone. I can watch a whole movie, but not when something happens in the movie that I don't like. So I leave. Oh, well, that's interesting, Star-Lord. What do I think about the new Karate Kid trailer? So I did see it for the first time over the weekend. Believe it or not, I'm very behind on movie trailers. It's interesting. I like that the Jackie Chan's character is coming to Daniel for help, and for helping in training a new potential prospect. I need to see more. I really need to see more. That new guy that they got was in a Disney Plus show, American Born Chinese, I believe it was. So he's like a new up and comer guy, and so far his capabilities of karate and kung fu look very interesting. But I feel like I need to see more of it. I need to see more of what they're coming. It also, believe it or not, or maybe you feel the same way, it feels like a deviation from what we're seeing in Cobra Kai. It's almost like an Elseworld storyline, because here we see Daniel looking a little younger than how he looks like on the Cobra Kai show. And Miyagi's house looks run down. So is this supposed to be a prequel to the events that happened in Cobra Kai? And could that mean that at the end of Cobra Kai, this guy who they're training shows up on the show? And this will lead to the new Karate Kid storyline. I don't know. But that's immediately what I thought about when I saw the trailer. So I think it's cool that it looks old school. Yeah, in a way it does. You're right. I want to make Mad Max called The Knight Rider, starring Mel Gibson as the Knight. No, Star-Lord, you should be in the movie. You should star as the Knight Rider because you are the Knight Rider. Star-Lord, no more prequels. Well, I wish there would be no more prequels, but I think that's inevitable at this point. We're always going to get prequels and sequels and so on and so forth. All right, let's close out the show with this last bit of news here. So every year, new movies are inducted into the National Film Registry. Now, if you don't know what that is, the National Film Registry is this organization that preserves film. They preserve certain film that they deem preservable. Like they hold such importance in cinema and in Hollywood and in the history of film that these films are meant to be preserved forever. And the National Film Registry has a huge list of films that they have been preserving every year. And it was announced there's 25 new additions to the registry. So I wanted to go over this list real quick here and review it with all of you. So obviously there's going to be some like old school movies, black and white movies here. You know, like Pride of the Yankees, Inkwell Imps, Annabelle Serpentine Dance, Invaders from Mars. But there's some stuff that I'm sure a lot of you will recognize. One of which is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is now part of the National Film Registry. So this has been deemed as an important movie in all of film and in the horror genre that is now being inducted into this registry. Another one is Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. This is a classic old school comedy. I believe Pee Wee Herman himself, Paul Rubens, makes an appearance in this movie. But it's definitely a different time of comedy. But speaking of comedy, we have Beverly Hills Cop. Beverly Hills Cop is now part of the National Film Registry. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Dirty Dancing. My Own Private Idaho, an old school Keanu Reeves movie. American Me is another one. No Country for Old Men. Spy Kids is now part of the registry, which this surprises me. I mean, I didn't realize that Spy Kids was such an important film out of all of them. My Family and The Social Network. David Lynch's Social Network. A lot of people would consider this, along with Blue Velvet, to be his best films ever made. So these are your new inductions into the National Registry. So what I usually like to do every year is that if there are any films on here that I've never seen before, I will make it a point to watch one of them. Like, for example, like My Own Private Idaho, I've never seen that movie all the way through. So maybe that's a movie that I'm going to try to watch for the very first time. And I've never seen No Country for Old Men, believe it or not. So that is a movie that has always been on my list that I need to check out myself. So yeah, so very interesting to see these movies up on here. Beverly Hills Cop, I'm not surprised. I'm actually very happy that this is part of it because this is definitely one of those standout comedies from the 1980s. Dirty Dancing was very iconic for the 80s as well. When you think of movie scenes that were always embedded in your head and that have also been very much mimicked and recreated in history, Dirty Dancing, with the whole picking up of her and the big dance number at the end, very iconic, always replicated, right? So yeah, so I'm just curious if any of these movies stand out to anybody here watching live or watching on the replay later on. Social Network, I mean, you know, the semi biopic of Zuckerberg and the formation of Facebook. I haven't seen this movie in a while, but I remember really, really enjoying this movie quite a bit. Wrath of Khan, probably one of the best Star Trek movies ever made. You know, and I was I was talking to PDQ about Wrath of Khan recently too, on an off stream conversation we were having. So yeah, very interesting stuff there. Let's see. Star-Lord wants to be a Goomba in a new live action Mario Brothers movie. Yeah, if I have a chance to make a movie like that, Star-Lord, I will make sure to reach out to you. De-evolve me, please. Arnold saying LOWKEY, GEEK, and Dirty Dancing, that would be in the joke over here. Now, am I the one being lifted up? my head, the time of my life. Who's lifting me up? I think Arnold is lifting me up. Arnold's got the guns to lift me up that high up. Oh, too funny. All right, guys, I think this is the moment where I'm going to call it for a day and for a year. It's crazy how we're approaching the end of the year and a lot has happened, to me, to all of us, to the channel. The year is going to close out with the channel hitting 16,000 subscribers, which is, I still can't imagine. I still can't believe that it hit that milestone. Again, a huge thanks to all of you guys watching live, or maybe some of you who are watching later on demand, who have been part of this journey ever since. I'm very grateful to all of you. Personal life has a lot of ups and downs, and the last couple of months, you guys know I've been going through a lot of things, a lot of changes, some good, some challenging, but I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out moving into next year. I'm looking forward for more things on the channel next year when I get more of the free time back after all of this stuff is done. I'm going to be in a new space. Hopefully I'll be able to create more content, do maybe another live stream during the week. I've heard it before that people were missing the Friday stream, so I hope I could bring that back at least. More movie reviews, more access to events that I can cover for you guys. Just a lot more things. And as always, I'm open to feedback too from all of you. What would you like to see? What would you be interested in having me talk about, having me produce, having me cover? Let me know. I'm always looking forward for feedback. So I'm very, very interested in hearing all that stuff. But we close out this year. And what I do want to say is a major thanks again to all of you for supporting me, supporting the streams, supporting the video content, supporting the channel. For those who are even less vocal at times, just for being there, just for being a viewer, just for watching, hitting that like button, telling other people about the streams and all that. I'm just very, very grateful and happy for all of you guys. For the companies and organizations that help me do things, that will help me cover things on the channel, New York Film Festival and Museum of Moving Image. I thank those guys for having these events and having me being able to attend these things to cover for everybody. I'm just always very grateful and happy for it. So I'm hoping for more things, bigger things next year. And I hope for big things and better things for all of you guys too. I know Arnold's in the middle of trying to land a new job. I'm wishing and hoping the best for you. I hope you get that news soon. Star-Lord, I know you've been going through some things, and I really hope that 2025 will be a great year for you and for everybody. I think we've all been going through some crazy stuff, some interesting stuff. And I just wish nothing but the best for everybody, So as we close out this year, as I close out this stream, I'm going to one last big shout out and thanks to everybody. So Arnold, Star-Lord for coming back, after his little hiatus. Always appreciate your random comments and your different takes on things, your different point of view. I always appreciate all that stuff. Jester, one of the newer members of the community, another film lover like me. I love hearing his film journeys of new movies he's watching. I know he's working on some stuff that I don't know if he wants to announce just yet, but I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's reactions with the stuff that he's working on. Arnold for his crazy comments and takes on life and everything in general. I can't wait for House of the Dragon to come back so that we could talk more about that stuff and more things there. Kevin Davis with his crazy predictions and stats. Always enjoy him chiming in. Even though sometimes I think he's a bot, he's still very much real to me. At the end of the day, he's real to me, man. AKB as always, friend outside of the channel, longtime friend outside of the channel. Always happy to have him part of the streams. PDQ, Same thing, major friend outside of the streams here. Me and him are working on some stuff that we're going to get ready to talk about very soon. So I hope to share all of those news with all of you guys eventually down the line. Just huge thanks to everyone who are silent in the background, who don't leave any comments whatsoever. I'm always happy and thankful to have all of you guys here as part of things. I want to play some music to be festive and close things out here. What can I say, guys? It's been a blast. I'm looking forward to 2025. Good or bad, ride or die, I'll be here to the end. Arnold saying, I want to see more game live streams. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. I'll definitely keep that in mind for 2025. Starlord saying he'll be the one to lift me up, but he's straight. That's perfectly fine too. You don't have to be gay to lift each other's up while doing dirty dancing. It's perfectly fine. Arnold saying stay as great as you are and celebrate the rest of the days with your family and come into the new year healthy. Thank you so much. Very happy to hear that. Do your thing like a chicken wing on a string, Starlord says. I'm here for it. Grateful for you as always. You all have a good one. This is the way. Stay safe. See you next year, bro. Big arms, kisses, Santa, LFG. Let's fucking go. Ho, 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 all the way. Guys, have a wonderful Christmas if you celebrate. Have a wonderful holiday. Enjoy the rest of your year. I will see all of you in the brand new year. Again, reminder, no show next week. I'm taking it off, but I will be back the following week. I'll keep everyone posted and informed on the channel through the post there. So, as I always say, make sure tip your waitress, be kind to your bartender, put your phones away during the movies, at the theaters, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe, and I will catch all of you in the new year. Peace out, y'all. Bye-bye. Haktua, spit on that thing.
I'm gonna come.
Hey, I'm not your face, dumb dickless!
You blew it!
Wow.